if it's not happening, I feel like unless there's like some kind of medical emergency or there's like a deployment, there's distance between you. If you're under normal circumstances, two relatively healthy people, under the same roof, and you're not having sex at a bare minimum of once a week, I feel like that's an emergency. I feel like because there's really no reason for it not to happen. And if you put it off and it's not happening at least that often, then you're going to start going into these ruts where it's really, really, it's just not happening. You're in a rut where it's not happening at all, and you're opening
You just get in
yourselves
that
up
habit of it
to
not, yeah.
disconnection, to a temptation, temptation to have an affair, temptation to fall into porn, or to connect with other people in other ways that aren't healthy. And we need that connection. Now, it takes a lot more than sex to build a great marriage, but it's nearly impossible to build a great marriage without it, unless you're just in a place where you can't do it. I mean, right now with Ashley's healing, we physically can't have intercourse
Not
while
intercourse,
she's
yeah.
healing. So we're trying to stay connected in every way that we can, but you're working around that boundary right now
Hmm.
while she's healing, and you might have seasons of marriage like that. But under normal circumstances, I would say shoot. The goal is if the two spouses have completely different drives, I feel like the goal, and this is a controversial thought for some reason for people, the goal is try to make the goal as much as the higher drive person wants to do it. Instead of like meeting in the middle, like, well, they want to do it 3 times a week, I want to do it once a week, so let's meet in the middle and do it twice a week. Like, no, why wouldn't you just aim for the higher standard and say, no, let's aim for three, and both benefit from it. And whoever has the higher drive in any part of marriage, like which spouse has a higher drive for communication? If one spouse wants to talk an hour a day and the other spouse never wants to talk, well, we wouldn't just say, well, you just gotta never talk because one's not in the mood to talk, and it's not right to pressure them to talk. With any other thing outside of sex, we wouldn't even think that way. We'd say, no, you got to talk. That's part of
Right. Like
marriage.
you're
So like, so get over it and talk, and you'll end up enjoying it and connecting. So aim for the higher standard, and I think both people benefit when that happens, as long as there's not manipulation tied to it,
yes,
as long as there's
yes.
not control
Well,
and
I think that
Not
happens. I think
coercion.
I
coercion.
think I think people, because y'all represent a healthy marriage. I think people do use sex as a tool, as a weapon, as a
Yeah,
means of manipulation, on
yeah,
both sides. I mean, it's one of those
Oh,
things
for
where
sure.
if you withhold it on purpose because you're wanting to retaliate, or you just don't want to fulfill that need in,
Punishment.
yeah, for punishment.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's just cruel. I mean,
It's
it's
very mean.
hurtful. It's
It's
not
very cruel.
healthy.
Yeah,
And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, because once that starts happening and you haven't resolved it, it just piles up. And then you have a lot of resentment. Then it's harder than ever to
Yeah.
get back into a rhythm where you feel free to even express, like, hey, I would love to be together on both sides. And
Right.
then that's not met with, you just had it. What do you,
Right.
what do you
yeah.
like? Or why would you make me feel like you just had it? Why do you need it again? And that's where a lot of guys feel
Hmm.
ashamed or guilty, or a lot of women feel like a guy uses that to basically turn them into, I don't know. My dad uses the term in his book. I'm not going to say it on the air. I don't want this tied to me, but basically, your wife's just a means of. He uses the terminology vaginal masturbation. You don't need your
Oh,
wife
yeah.
to just be there to give you a release. I don't want.
Like a warm body.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
Right.
want
yeah,
that. Is it warm?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even warm. Sometimes she's scrolling on Facebook that I've,
Right.
people are, checking social media. So it's not a true connection. And I feel like
That's not right.
that's not what a guy wants either. So really,
Hmm.
I think you guys represent a healthy marriage, and we do too. But there's a lot of people out there that are frustrated because they don't just want the orgasm and release; they want to feel connected to their spouse,
Yes.
and and that's
Absolutely.
and that's a challenge for some out there. And I think that's why you guys talking about it for an extended period of time on the Naked Marriage podcast is so healthy, because you're giving people the reality of marriage and allowing them to kind of process it and talk about uncomfortable things